Joe, in the movie we watched this week, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has to travel to Brazil to pick up Seann William Scott and bring him to his dad's house, I guess, in America.
Yeah.
Do you remember a time where I've picked you up to take you someplace back in the day?
Oh, back in the day, this is one of my favorite memories of fun things we did. So we both grew up in the Bay Area. So that needs to be the frame for this. And if you were anybody who was anybody in the Bay Area, you loved Huey Lewis and the News.
Absolutely.
It was just like a law, I think they passed, especially if you're in Northern California, which we both were from. And so you picked me up from work one afternoon. You did not tell me any information.
I kept it a surprise.
It was a total surprise. You just picked me up and you said, we got to go. And so we started driving, and we live in Seattle. Puyallup Fair is where the state fair is. It's a bit of a drive
from Bellingham. Yeah.
From Bellingham. So it's like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive. And so you picked me up and didn't tell me where we were going. And so we just were off on an adventure to wherever, which was fine with me.
Sure.
I didn't realize what was happening, I think, until we got to the Puyallup Fair.
Uh-huh.
And we could hear Huey Lewis and the News playing.
Because we were late? Because that's also classic us?
Yeah, classic us. Yeah, they were probably halfway through the set list.
Yep.
And I remember we got there, and then, they like to end a lot of songs by jumping, as it like on the last beat. And you're I remember you pointing to me going, did you see that? Every one of the band was off the ground on that.
That's how you know they're a good band.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I remember. That was a really fun trip, and still an encapsulation of our friendship that really hasn't changed much. We drove around, listened to music, talked about music, talked about movies, and that's about it. So
I remember what we talked about on the way there. We were listening to U2 and A Tribe Called Quest. Those were the two albums we listened to, and we had a lot to talk about with those two.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was the new Tribe Called Quest. It was after Beats, Rhymes, and Life. Low End Theory.
It was Beats, Rhymes, and Life.
Oh, wow. That's
right.
That's right. Yeah.
A record, I think it was very lukewarm on when it came out. And it's now just, one of my favorite records of all time.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Yeah.
Sneaky album.
We finished the show, and then we drive home. We must have stopped in Seattle?
I don't think we stopped. I think we just went straight through. We may have stopped for gas or something like that, but maybe we stopped at Denny's. That was a big thing. We would do that a lot.
We're classy, obviously.
Sherry's if we're really classy.
Yeah. But do you remember when we were driving home, we were falling asleep?
Yeah, we were falling asleep. And so we were in about half hour, 45 minutes from home.
Yeah.
By that point.
Yep.
And we just pulled off at an exit and then drove down this farm road, which was pretty busy during the day, and just pulled off onto the shoulder and fell asleep. So unsafe. If my child did that, I would be so mad at him.
But on the other hand, super safe because we were recognizing we were too tired to drive.
Exactly. Yeah. We were doing everyone a favor. I remember being woken up at 2 or 3 in the morning by a train going by.
Yeah.
And just being freezing cold.
So cold.
Yeah.
I remember that feeling. And, we're about a half hour from home, blasting the heater, and it is doing nothing for me.
Nothing. Yeah.
That's amazing. We should go to the fair this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Only good people play the Puyallup Fair.
100% true. All right, let's get to the show.
Let's do it.
One job, I wipe your slate clean. You walk out of this house a free man.
How much?
250 large.
No problem.
He's come to the other side of the world to finish one last job.
Find them! I do not want to fight you. We are not fighting.
Okay, hip-hop.
The Rundown.
You got the moves. I'll give you that. Ow!
The year is 2003. Pete Berg gets together with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Seann William Scott and Rosario Dawson. And we're also talking about our guy, Christopher Walken, They decide to make The Rundown. Now, this is the most 2003 movie possible to be made that year. Joe Sky Tucker, why is The Rundown a great bad movie?
Well, you have some really good things going for it. You have a real director in Peter Berg.
Yep. Only his second movie, though.
Yeah. As you say in the opening, you could not encapsulate a year better or even like a time period of movies better than The Rundown in terms of what it is. It's got some really fun moments in it. Christopher Walken, this is him in the heyday of him coming in as a supporting character.
Yep.
Stealing every scene.
Yep.
Just kind of playing Christopher Walken to a T. It's like if someone was impersonating him in this movie, that's kind of, it's like a caricature of himself. He's hilarious in this. You have Sean William Scott coming off of the American Pie movie. So this is kind of his trying to do something a little different.
Yep.
And this is The Rock's first big movie.
Yeah.
So this makes him a star in a lot of ways. Past that, this is a tough movie. It's a bad movie too. There are a lot of tokenizing of indigenous culture in this. You have the most sepia-toned Brazil you could possibly have. So very much that. There's a lot of just kind of over the top, ridiculous fight scenes, which I'm here for. I'm not, don't get me wrong. I'm not against that, but it just, some of it just felt a little too over the top for me at times.
Interesting. So, what's over the top about the fight scenes?
It's like the final fight scene they have where he kills, like they have an army of people trying to stop two people.
Yeah.
Most of the people that he's killing are like people of color in Christopher Walken's army. And he just he just kills everyone. It's pretty ridiculous. But there are two favorite scenes in this. There's one where they fall down a cliff for an exceptionally long time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's comically long of a drop. And then there's Christopher Walken explaining the tooth fairy to people while trying to talk with a translator to translate what the tooth fairy is. I have no idea if that was completely ad-libbed or what, but that scene is perfect. But I turn it to you, Greg Swinehart. Why is The Rundown a great bad movie?
This is such a good movie. This is a movie that's been requested for us, by the way, by a few different friends of mine. This movie is beloved, and it's not, anywhere near one of the top movies that came out that year. I Googled 2003 today because I just was thinking this is the most 2003 movie in history. Top three movies were Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Finding Nemo, and The Matrix Reloaded in 2003. Okay. And the top three albums were Norah Jones, 50 Cent, and Linkin Park. And I just feel like what The Rundown shows is it's encapsulating a lot of Michael Bay fun and Tony Scott fun from the 90s, but it's also bringing in Dwayne The Rock Johnson, only billed in this movie as The Rock, not Dwayne or Johnson, just The Rock. It's also produced by WWE. So there was, all the wrestling tie-in stuff. He does his wrestling move in this movie.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that shouldn't be good. This is my favorite kind of movie that we watch for this show. It's one of those movies where you watch it, you don't expect much from it. And then afterwards, there are things that stand out, like falling down that mountain.
Yeah.
A scene that was shown at the beginning of The Fall Guy, a movie we covered a couple of episodes ago, when they're just kind of introducing what stunt people do in movies. But they fall down this hill forever. And
forever.
It's a really good scene. Actually, why don't we go to the clip? Should we go to the clip?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Where they hit the water. But when I was watching this for the first time, I was like, hold on, that was actually kind of amazing. Like they just kind of kept going. Like, oh, wait a minute. They do that a few times in this movie.
Yeah.
Where they take something and just kind of like, well, what if we just did the best version of that that's ever been captured on film?
Mm-hmm.
And I read that the inspiration for that part of the movie was actually from an old show called The Wide World of Sports. There was an episode where they showed like epic fails or something. And there was one where a skier started tumbling down a mountain and then just fell down the mountain for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And they just thought, what if we did that, but it was even longer? So this is a great movie because Peter Berg is an actor turned director, and he is allowing the actors to really just kind of shine and be themselves. I feel like Sean William Scott is showing us who he was he Stifler in American Pie? He's showing us the funny side, but he also is showing way more. He was showing that he could be a movie star for the next 20 years if he wanted to be. And I did not Google why that didn't happen. I'm sure there's some story. This movie set him up to be my next favorite Harrison Ford, really. He's definitely kind of doing Harrison Ford-ish stuff, but also just being snarky, when somebody tells him to shut up, he goes, you shut up, The Rock is completely setting the tone. Like if this movie has a brand, it really is just The Rock. Mm-hmm. And he just said, we could do this for the next 30 years if you want, guys. And he basically has.
Yeah.
Who he is in this movie is who he is in every movie.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. You get the full Rock range, which is, it's pretty narrow. You're going to get.
Yep.
He's not winning any Oscars for acting, but he's not going to ruin a movie either. I think I watched this a couple times over the last week. And actually the second time I was a little harder for me. I was more bullish on this movie the first time I watched it. I had only seen it in the theater. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those movies that surprised me of like, oh, it's this. Oh, this is what the movie is, because they kind of bill it a little bit more like a comedy, and it's got funny moments, but it's kind of takes itself pretty seriously in terms of like an action movie where you think it's going to be a little bit more of like almost like The Fall Guy is like a comedy.
Yep.
But they're trying, and I felt like they build it more as a comedy. And it's a little bit more serious, and it takes itself seriously, which I love, which is also my favorite kind of movie.
But it's also really funny.
It's good. It does have some really funny moments, and I think the chemistry between Sean William Scott and The Rock is awesome.
Really good. Yep.
And so they have some great scenes together. Yeah, I think I ended up struggling with it a little bit as I kind of was like, oh, the parts of like the indigenous culture that they kind of tokenize.
Sure.
The second time watching, I was like, oh, it's pretty glaringly 2003 with no real nod to like how kind of bad some of it looked. But I also, if you're watching this movie and expecting it to be a masterpiece in cultural, sensitivity, then you're come to the wrong place. Because it's just not that. But it's got some really fun moments in it. My favorite ones are The Rock and Sean William Scott when they're together. Yeah. They're just really funny. Yep. And then Christopher Walken stealing every scene he's in is just so perfect.
I bet we talked about this in Man on Fire episode. Christopher Walken, apparently when he gets a script, he takes out all the punctuation. And you can tell when he's reading his lines or saying his lines, like they don't start and end the way regular sentences would. And he puts really bizarre emphasis on things. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like he's doing that just to a T in this movie. This really could just be a paycheck for him, and we're all better for it.
Yeah.
But if you're wondering what Christopher Walken is like in this movie, he's just pure Christopher Walken. He's just Christopher Walkening, Yeah.
He's distilled perfectly. He's got a scene at the end, some lines where he's talking about like, I built you a city, and like all the stuff he's done for these people as he's like extracting gold from them. And it's just hilarious how he delivers his lines. Unfortunately, he's a really likable bad guy. Mm-hmm. So like I kind of root for him a little bit throughout this, even though he's doing terrible things in it. He is just so fun to watch in the movie that I wanted more of him is what I wanted.
He's forcing the indigenous Brazilian people to work in a mine. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like charging them for every little thing that they do to make their work life better. Yeah. It's basically slave labor, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's like the way I feel like they pitched it, it's like Midnight Run meets Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is.
Absolutely. Let me read a quote for you. This is from producer Kevin Misher. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. He called the film Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, which is not the name of a movie, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
You know what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Meets Romancing the Stone with a little bit of Midnight Run.
Yeah, exactly.
And this movie is maybe as good as Romancing the Stone. They're kind of on the same tier for me.
I think so. I have not seen that in so long that I can't. There's more, obviously, romance in Romancing the Stone.
Right. Yeah. It's Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas, a movie directed by Robert Zemeckis. It's the reason Robert Zemeckis was able to continue making movies was because he directed a film that wasn't his script and it was a hit. So they let him continue. Because he was making movies that he and Bob Gale were writing that just weren't doing anything. And then Back to the Future was next. So that worked out for everybody.
Yeah, so I can totally see Romancing the Stone because they also have a falling down a cliff scene.
Yep.
Okay, it's all clicking in for me now. I'm in. I'm back in on this movie.
I definitely see Sean William Scott doing Indiana Jones-ish moves in the way he's kind of like flinching and moving his eyes. And there's just like mannerisms, like the way he moves his mouth at a certain time to smirk or whatever, gloriously going in to do stupid things and then everything backfires on him. So I feel like he is very Indiana Jonesy in this movie. And then Midnight Run is potentially one of my favorite movies of my lifetime. It's so good. It's Robert De Niro and
is it Charles Grodin?
Charles Grodin, yeah. I can't believe I spaced on Charles Grodin.
Yeah. Shots fired at Charles Grodin.
I know. I mean, potentially one of the best movies either of them have been in, and that's really saying something. And it was directed by Martin Brest, who did Beverly Hills Cop right before that. So that's how he had the cachet to do it. Midnight Run is incredible. So needless to say, those three movies put together, you have a movie for Greg Swinehart. That's basically all I'm saying. And I feel like Pete Berg really lets Rosario Dawson and Sean William Scott and The Rock have interesting scenes. They really interact with each other and we're allowed to improv with each other. I don't know. I think it really says something when an actor directs. So there's some secret sauce there where there isn't a divide between the people in the movie and the person who's kind of running the show. How would you describe Peter Berg's direction of this movie? What does it remind you of?
It reminds me of a Guy Ritchie movie. That's what I had.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's true.
Spoiler alert for the drinking games. There's one of mine is every time you think you're watching a Guy Ritchie film, take a drink because he does, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where The Rock is, like the opening scene. He's talking to somebody and there's like, he's giving a long speech of like, and this person's defensive line from this person. Like they do like this clips and like,
there's like sports TV motion design happening.
Yeah.
Giving stats. It was ridiculous is what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so dumb.
Yeah. So that was who I took away from it. I'm dying to know who you think this is.
I just got so much Michael Bay and Tony Scott from this thing.
Yeah.
Especially in some of the editing. The Rock has some sort of superpower where he's able to like take in the whole scene and kind of see what's going on. And the camera is like really close up on, I don't know, everybody's eyes and everybody's guns. And I don't know. There's just that kind of movie. There must be a Michael Bay or a Tony Scott movie where this happens.
Yeah. I feel like between, Tony Scott, Michael Bay, and Guy Ritchie, they all make very similar kinds of movies.
Yep.
I feel like Michael Bay makes movies that have no soul to them.
Right.
I really struggle with him. I like Tony Scott films. I think I've grown to appreciate him more after his passing than I did when he was making movies.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like he's an underrated director, especially action movie director. He's able to really lean into getting the most out of his actors and the characters. And Guy Ritchie kind of makes, and I'm thinking about like when I watched it in the theater, I was 28, 27, it's for men 18 to 34. So it's definitely leaning hard into those sorts of tropes and action movies. And, clearly we have not grown up at all because those are still the movies that we love to watch. But I definitely see Michael Bay and Tony Scott in the direction. I wonder if Peter Berg ever worked with either of those directors. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't think of anything he did, but.
No, I don't think he had been in one. Well, there's definitely like editing decisions and I guess it's mostly in editing. It's also in kind of some of the production, some of how he's filming it. But this movie, would you describe this movie as a soulless movie? I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah. I think the characters are better in this movie than I would have anticipated. Sean William Scott is better than I think I've ever seen him in anything. I'm sure I haven't seen a lot of stuff with him lately. Rosario Dawson is awesome in this movie, except for the accent.
Yeah. Another spoiler alert on my drinking game.
Yep. But her character is great.
Mm-hmm.
Not like a romantic interest. Thank goodness.
Yeah. You think they're going to like pigeonhole or kind of stick it on somewhere.
Right.
And it never does. And I really appreciated that.
Like there's that scene when they're in the boat. We think she's just like a bartender. And then it turns out she's actually the leader of this like rebellion army. And there's a scene with the three of them in a boat where she's kind of like trying to get Sean William Scott to show her where this artifact is, the gato. She's so great in that scene. I really loved that scene.
All right. This is the way it's going to be. You're going to take me to El Gato do Diabo. And you're going to take me now.
Calm down.
Don't. You saw what they do. Don't ever tell me to calm down.
Don't ever tell me to calm down. Like that's what female protagonist in a movie in 2003 was saying that in this kind of movie. There was kind of like a little bit of I don't know. I didn't expect something that good in a movie like this,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
It resonates today too, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It opens with The Rock listening to some sort of audiobook about porcini mushrooms. Apparently he's doing some kind of big research for some kind of restaurant he's about to start.
Yeah.
That's like his main motivation in the movie. And it's mentioned a few times, but almost entirely forgotten by me as I watch it. Did they not mention it much?
They mention it at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah, right.
And that's really it. Maybe one other time in the middle, he's trying to open a restaurant. That's the Midnight Run. If you know, that's Robert De Niro's character in Midnight Run wants to open a restaurant. Like that's his motivation.
That. Yeah.
So that was the Midnight Run piece for me of like tracking down a fugitive. It's his last job. He needs $100,000 to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not really mentioned very much. They probably could have done a better job. If they made it today, they'd be a little bit more of breadcrumbs throughout the story on him wanting to open a restaurant and being a chef. It's not really, it's one of those, like in the Fall Guy, they used a lot of those breadcrumbs. So like everything that you saw in the movie ties to another scene further on. That part of it, like you could cut out the fact that he wants to be a chef and like nobody, the movie doesn't change one bit at all. So
I'm glad they kept it in.
Yeah. It gives him the motivation for the one last job that, he wants to retire and get out of the game and all of that sort of stuff.
Right. It's a pretty well written movie. I think we could talk about the writers for a second. They're two very different people. There's one guy named R.J. Stewart, and he worked on Remington Steele, the show with Pierce Brosnan, and then he wrote Major League 2.
All right.
And his IMDb page is mostly Xena Warrior Princess.
Okay.
And so he worked on this movie. And then also a guy named James Vanderbilt worked on it. And he wrote Basic with John Travolta, directed by John McTiernan. I think John McTiernan's last movie. Okay. After The Rundown, he wrote Zodiac, which Fincher directed. Zodiac's an incredible movie, one of the best of our time. And then he wrote The Losers, a movie we will definitely be getting to.
Yes. We're big fans of that movie.
Absolutely. White House Down. He wrote The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. A story by credit on that. He wrote Truth, which I think is a Dan Rather biopic. He wrote the second Independence Day. So I have to think some of the best writing came from him.
Action movie royalty under his belt there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely noticed things that they were saying in the beginning of this movie where like when The Rock goes to talk to Sean William Scott's dad, who's like his boss and he owes him, I don't know, $250,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And he just says, if you do this last job, you'll be free. I'll give you your cash to go start your restaurant. But he also says something like his son had made a lot of mistakes. And he says something like, something you might know about. Like they kind of allude to The Rock's past, but they never really get into it.
Yeah.
But I just really liked that they said it like, oh, that's a character building moment that we don't need any more information, but they're kind of letting us know. There were moments like that during this movie where I was like, oh, that's good writing right there. That's they're turning a dumb movie into something that's actually worth me paying attention and thinking about it, But yeah, the sports show stuff at the very beginning came from the XFL, which Vince McMahon was, running the XFL back then. That's no longer around, right? We're done with that.
It's been merged with the USFL into the UFL. So there's like a spring football league.
Okay.
So, but it's still, parts of it are still around.
So that all came from that. And, this movie was produced by the WWE, which was Vince McMahon's thing. Dwayne Johnson later became a co-owner of the XFL. So that's interesting. But that opening, I just thought this is for people who are should I watch this movie that just I stumbled upon on cable right now in 2004. That's what that is for.
Yeah.
And it is completely abandoned afterwards. It turns into a real movie after that. I really don't understand why they did it. I thought it was pretty dumb. And then I read the Vince McMahon fact.
Yeah, there's no reason other than it's a not so subtle passing of the torch to The Rock from like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You kind of have that. And in my real back of the box, I kind of get into that a little bit of like,
sure,
the tag team. Okay, your turn. You're up.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Arnold walks by him.
Have fun.
Like The Rock is walking into the opening club and Arnold Schwarzenegger is walking by and just says, have fun. And The Rock kind of stares at him after he walks by for a little while. People kind of viewed that as him handing the torch over.
Yep.
I think was he governor at that point in 2002, 2003?
He must have been. I think he was.
Yeah. That came about because Arnold Schwarzenegger and The Rock were having lunch at Universal Studios where they were filming this, or wherever they were filming this. I might be remembering that wrong. And Peter Berg walked up and said hi, and then said, would you want to have a cameo in this? And Arnold said, I will if we do it right now. And 15 minutes later, they were on the set shooting that.
Awesome.
Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome. Yeah. And that scene is totally tacked on there. It's like, character building in that The Rock or his character, Beck, can basically beat up anybody, no matter the stakes. And, he's good to go from there. So it's kind of classic action movie trope of opening in an action scene to not tell you, but show you how good the hero is.
Right. And he really doesn't want to, he's there to collect some cash for his boss and from a football player. And he really doesn't want to fight because he's a fan of the football team.
Yeah.
And they're about to have an important game and he doesn't want to beat them up.
Yeah.
So he's like the reluctant hero in this one. He's like, don't make me do my job here.
Yeah.
And is that also where we find out that he hates guns in that scene?
I think they pat him down or something like that, getting
Yeah.
I hate guns. Yeah.
Right. Which is a dumb conceit in this movie. But I think in 2003, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. What a brave choice for an action movie.
But then, of course, he, has like a crazy fight scene where he's doing his wrestling moves in there. I'm sure a lot of the people he was fighting were like wrestlers in the WWE as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Reluctant, though. That's kind of how he's playing this. Don't make me do this. Don't make me go back to my dark past of whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the fact that he was hesitant was great. I also like that after that, he goes to his boss's house and he's holding up like a frozen bag of vegetables on his head in a scene just to, I think he does a lot to make himself vulnerable in like the first act of this movie. He really shows like, I don't want to be doing this, which was a good choice. He's afraid of like the plane that he takes to get to Brazil.
Yeah. Yeah. Ewan Bremner from Trainspotting fame.
Right.
Making basically a cameo. Declan, he's a character that has no bearing on the plot really, but he's pretty funny.
Is he Scottish, but he's doing an Irish accent? Is that what's happening here?
I don't know what accent he's doing. I know he's Scottish.
Yeah. I think he was doing like a Northern Irish accent.
Interesting.
But when he's flying the plane, like I had to have the subtitles on. Like you can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
But he's saying there's bulls on the ground, but he's saying there's booze on the grind.
Yeah.
I love The Rock is just like, booze on the grind?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a funny character in there. They got some like real actors for this as well. So that makes it.
I also love that he continually calls The Rock little fella. That's what he calls him the whole time. That was pretty. That was a nice touch. And then we meet Sean William Scott and Rosario Dawson. They have like a sort of like a meet cute, sort of like he brings her flowers. He's trying to like woo her. She's running a bar.
Yeah.
They're talking about going to get the gato together, which is some sort of Raiders of the Lost Ark statue.
Yeah.
Made of gold. And you see that he's kind of dumb and she's tough. That's what we get out of that scene. It's like old Hollywood.
Yeah, she sees through him, but you still think that there might be some romance, which thankfully they don't go there.
Yeah.
As everyone knows, my view on romance.
Right.
In these kinds of movies, get it out of there.
She's basically pulling a Karen Allen, actually, now that I think of it, from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
Interesting. Wow.
All we're missing is her drinking shots of alcohol with a Nazi, and we're good to go.
I'm sure they shot it.
Yeah.
And then when they show kind of the town in Brazil, they do all kinds of just crazy editing where like somebody puts a domino down on a table for no, there's like a close up of somebody putting a domino down out of nowhere. It's like,
yeah,
just crazy editing for no reason. Probably just so that I'll keep watching it on cable,
Yeah, there were some interesting choices that Peter Berg does in some of the shots. So there's a clear green screen shot where they show the mine, which looks like the worst place in the world, which is just humongous.
Yep.
But it like soars out over, and then kind of the camera drops into the center of it. They do another one like that where they're escaping on foot through the jungle, and then the camera like shoots up and then moves over, pans over, and drops to the people chasing them in cars.
Yep.
To me, it was a little distracting, and like, this is definitely like early director. Like you're throwing everything into it.
Over stylized,
and that's to me a hallmark of Guy Ritchie films.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially like I think of like Snatch and Lock, Stock.
Yep.
And they work, but there are moments where like, okay, it's a little distracting at times for me.
Yep.
That was definitely where I had a few moments where like, oh, okay, do we need to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of holding on to that form versus function part of the 90s and the aughts that I kind of forgot about.
Yeah.
Luckily, we sort of got rid of that.
And he doesn't do it. And like, to me, it's like, it stands out because he doesn't do it enough throughout the movie, where it just becomes kind of part of the style, where it kind of is like borrowing pieces from here and there is what it felt like.
It's totally piecemeal. You're right. Yeah. But the real magic of the movie is like when The Rock and Sean William Scott, they're talking to the Brazilians who are speaking Portuguese at them. And Sean William Scott is speaking Portuguese back. And Sean William Scott in Portuguese is saying like, you should attack my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And The Rock is saying, tell them that I'm a friend, and I will not hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting more hostile towards The Rock.
Why do I get the feeling you really suck at Portuguese?
Just like moments like that happened a few times in this movie. And it's the thing that when I walked away from this movie the first time, I was like, that was great. I mean, they were really good together.
Do you know how much of the film or of their scenes, especially some of like they after they fall down the impossibly long cliff and then they're, is ad-lib just between the two of them?
I think quite a bit.
Yeah, because it felt funny and like not writerly in what it was. It just felt like two people kind of just riffing together, because you could cut a lot of it out of the film and it wouldn't affect the plot or the character development, but it's funny and it's fun and it's, they have great chemistry together. And so that's what I like those scenes the best.
Yep.
When they're just together being fairly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Kind of going through some of the tropes, but also being pretty funny and charming at the same time.
When I walked out of it, that connection between them and the extended action sequences were the things that pushed it into great for me. Like, this is a great movie. I think this is a great movie. This is also a bad movie.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that definitely has greatness. Like that fight that they have with the Brazilian people. It's a great fight. I'm sure those were all stunt people who were in that fight. Yeah. There's like tons of wire work, invisible wire work happening where people are, changing direction midair and stuff like that.
I remember watching it in the theater as well, and they are definitely having some fun, and kind of after we've done some of these movies with, David Leitch and Extraction and those sort of, like I've done, and I think you have too, like deep dives into the stunt coordinators, and you just see that, all the stunt people and the movies that I like have basically a lot of the same stunt coordinators and stunt actors on all of them. So there's clearly a fraternity of folks doing really cool stuff that we, clearly we like and resonates. But that fight scene's really fun. The end fight scene, even though it's a little over the top and just like lots of killing brown people, unfortunately. There are some just ridiculous moments in it that The Rock jumps through a beam and destroys it, and then like punches through another one to have the platform that the bad guys are on collapse.
Right.
So perfect and so just ridiculous at the same time.
He gets to like a breaking point where he picks up the guns.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he's said, I don't like guns so many times. And then we get to see whatever this past world that he lived in. He's just like amazing with these 2 shotguns. And he does like every possible thing you can do with 2 shotguns in your hands. Like, he keeps like swinging them into those armpits and like double cocking them and then swinging them back forward. There's one moment where he aims the 2 guns just like next to each other at 2 people and they both get shot. Like he's holding them together. I don't know how to describe this. He's not holding them in 2 hands. He's holding both guns in 1 hand and somehow shoots 2 guns side by side. It's just madness, just so dumb. But at that point in the movie, I was just like, I love two guns here that have an endless amount of ammo. There is no need to ever reload these guns.
No. Yeah. And walking down the middle of a street while people are shooting at him. It's like,
just great bad shots everywhere.
Everywhere. This movie, you could watch it as is great bad shots in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
Every
100%.
time they shoot at the good guys, not even winged. They don't even get like shot a little bit or in the side or, in the arm.
Yep.
Never. They never get shot.
Nope, never. Well, he does get shot, right?
The Rock doesn't. He gets shot with beanbags at the beginning by another bounty hunter.
Right. Slow motion beanbag. Yeah. Beanbag guns. It's a pretty good idea.
Mm-hmm. But that's the only time. He gets punched a couple times, but he gets beat up by the Brazilian freedom fighters or whatever. So
right. But then they become friends at the fire.
Yeah.
A scene I liked. They talk about Muhammad Ali. It's like they were able to condense 2 Fast and Furious movies into one rundown. Where the bad guy from one Fast and Furious movie becomes the good guy in the next one.
Yep.
They just pulled that halfway through in this one.
Exactly. Yep.
It's amazing. Oh, when they finally get to find the Gato, which is like a Raiders of the Lost Ark golden statue, they have to go through some sort of like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade maze where they have to like know certain languages or something.
Yeah, something on the floor with how to get through it, but it still is falling down on top of him. And man, the CGI is rough on that scene.
I mean, how many CGI close calls were there in
lot.
That scene? Just like they must be like scratched at this point, right? Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all. Did you like before they go into that mine shaft when they had to swim kind of underneath the waterfall to get there? And Rosario Dawson just says an aside to The Rock.
Yeah, don't pee in the water because the parasites will. Yeah. I thought that was another moment that like you don't need in this, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Don't pee in the water because they'll swim up your pinto. Is that what she says?
Yeah.
Swim up my what?
Your pinto. It'll swim up your ding dong, and once it gets in, we can't get it out.
It had me at ding dong. Like that's just perfect. That's amazing. But then The Rock's response to that.
Not this boy's Pinto. Not today.
Not today made me laugh out loud alone in my house.
Could there be a more Rock line delivered in like the Rock way?
100%. Yeah. This is like the movie that made him a movie star, He made $12.5 million in this movie. First big movie, $12.5 million. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That really is Arnold Schwarzenegger handing over the baton.
Yeah. And it probably helps that he had Vince McMahon as the producer. But yeah, it was shocking, quite frankly, that it did as well. I do remember when it came out, and it was kind of like the conversation was, is he going to be a movie star? Can he make the transition from wrestling to the big screen? And clearly the answer is yes. And we're sitting here now 20 some years later, and he's one of the biggest action stars on the planet.
Are you ready for the conversation about The Rock?
Sure. Let's do it.
This is the conversation that needed to happen about The Rock, obviously, is happening right now. Is The Rock great?
I think he's a great action star in the vein of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone from the 80s. But really, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is his doppelganger. And like, he's hit that. It almost feels like now sometimes bordering on satire of his movies.
Yeah.
I was watching Hobbs and Shaw again. I'm loving it.
Obviously. We'll get to Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah. But, it's the same character that he's playing in this movie, that he's playing in Hobbs and Shaw, that he's playing in basically everything that he's in. So like his range as an actor is not awesome.
But he's entertaining.
But I'm not going to watch his movies because I'm like, well, I really want to watch Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right.
Show me how great an actor he is. I want to see him beat up people and stuff blow up in the background. And so there are times when I get it's a little tiresome for me with him, honestly. This movie, I don't feel that way. I think I like it, but there were moments even in Hobbs and Shaw where it was like, we're just over the top, the rockness.
Yeah. That's like early Arnold. Later Arnold is vulnerable. And it's interesting that The Rock started vulnerable and is now a caricature.
Yeah.
In most
what do you think about The Rock?
I think he has a lower ceiling than Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger do. Like, I don't think his movies ever reach those heights, but they're always consistently entertaining to me.
Yeah.
I think he hasn't had many great movies. And I suppose you'd kind of have to be hard pressed to look for which Arnold movies are great movies too. What's his peak? Terminator 2?
Probably.
Total Recall?
In that era.
Yeah.
So you have Total Recall, Terminator 2.
I mean, you could go the other side of the coin where Twins is really funny.
Yeah. Kindergarten Cop.
Yep.
I think Arnold is an underrated comedic actor.
Yeah, that's true.
I watched his show on Netflix, Fubar, which is basically him kind of playing a caricature of himself or kind of his characters as he's aged. And it's funny and it's good. I'm not watching that because I'm like, this is like premiere television. It's a stupid spy show where he's trying to save his daughter and, there's some tension there and it's funny.
Is he playing like a famous actor?
No, he's playing like a spy.
Okay.
But like his family doesn't know he's a spy and his daughter's a spy. And then they find out on a job together.
Okay. So it's like True Lies, the show, sort of.
Yeah, sort of.
Did you ever watch?
True Lies might be also another peak because that movie, I love that movie so much.
We'll get to True Lies. Did you ever watch the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, JCVD?
No.
We'll get to JCVD. But also he did a show on Amazon called Jean-Claude Van Johnson, where he plays a character who basically was Jean-Claude Van Damme, but he's now a spy.
Awesome.
And so like he's doing missions. His boss is Mrs. Cosby from The Cosby Show. Felicia Rashad, is that her name? Who was also incredible in The Beekeeper with Statham. We'll get to The Beekeeper. Are you kidding me? Great Bad Mundane Jobs. That's the series we'll be in on that. Anyways, back to The Rock. I think The Rock is very consistent. Sometimes it's questionable. Like Rampage wasn't amazing. Skyscraper wasn't amazing. He had a couple in a row there. So I think this is probably one of his best because he's playing it more vulnerable than usual.
Like a lot of actors, I think he's better in an ensemble. Like the first Jumanji is a great movie. It's really funny.
Yeah.
He's really funny in it.
Yeah.
It's got a great cast. So I think when he doesn't need to carry the movie, it's better.
Yeah.
I think of, our favorite Fast and Furious is Fast 5. He's in that, but he's not the main character in that.
Right.
He's got a really pivotal role in it, but he's not, and he's full on The Rock in that as well.
Totally. Yeah.
But I also feel like it's telling that in talking about The Rock, we ended up talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger more than we talked about The Rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, no one is saying Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great actor, but I feel like he's got more range than The Rock does.
I think you're right. I think this movie would have been horrible without The Rock. In fact, Peter Berg said that this movie could have been a dark, vicious action thriller, But the fact that it's playful and funny is a tribute to The Rock. He's a charming, charismatic, and very smart man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he kind of willed this to be what it is. And it's on his back. And I think it would be better. Well, I don't know if it could have been better. It could have been better as a movie. But like you were talking about Jack Black being around, Kevin Hart being around, Karen Gillan, the four of them are incredible together. Maybe there should have been a fourth in this movie. Maybe more Declan. We just needed more Declan.
Yeah.
For the booze on the grind.
I got the booze on the grind.
Yeah. Should we get to the back of the box in case people want to?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's probably people who haven't seen this movie.
Yeah.
So if you have not seen this movie and you want to go rent it in a Blockbuster because it is now 2003, walk up to this DVD box and look at the back. And we're going to tell you what the back of that box says.
As always with these, when we start talking about them, I end up liking the movie more. So I was a little bit down on this movie when I wrote my real back of the box when you get to it. So you'll see, I won't edit it in the moment, but I was struggling with the movie. Now I'm like back in. I'm all in. I'm all back in on the rundown. But here's the back of the box in Blockbuster Video or wherever you are getting your videos these days.
It's the back of the box.
When bounty hunter Beck, The Rock, is tasked with bringing Travis Walker, Sean William Scott, home, he inadvertently stumbles into a gold mining operation stripping the Amazon of its resources. Now forced to take sides for once in his life, can Beck defeat his inner demons and save the town? This movie packs a punch and then some with an explosive finale guaranteed to satisfy. That's the back of the box right there. I'm watching that movie every time.
How is it that you aren't in marketing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so that's the back of the box, and that is exactly what that box said. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could find a box of this movie.
Yeah.
But you're saying that you feel a little bit differently than when you wrote the real back of the box. So let's hear what your real back of the box was that was a little bit more dour than you feel now.
Yeah. All right. So real back of the box. All right. To take a wrestling metaphor, this is the proverbial tagging in of the next action star. Arnold Schwarzenegger even cameos in the opening scene. It has all the toxic masculinity you can handle, filled with one-dimensional characters yelling at each other. Yet, I still have a soft spot for this movie, if for nothing else than Christopher Walken making every scene he is in perfect. There are some very fun action scenes and genuinely funny moments wrapped around a movie you will forget in 5 minutes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it's about right. It's a great bad movie.
All right. Yeah. It's a great bad movie. It's got all of what we love and the pieces that are troublesome as well.
Absolutely. Did you like the scene when Rosario Dawson gives them the con lobos, which makes them kind of start to hallucinate and everybody's face starts to kind of like balloon in different directions?
I did like that scene because I remember when I watched it the first time in the theater, that was the scene that told me that they weren't going to go down the romantic trope, which at that point would have felt really just like hacksawed into the plot.
Yep.
Or like, who is she going to pick? Is it, The Rock or Sean William Scott? And who's the
right.
And this is just like, nope, we're not going that way.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated it for that purpose. It's a little silly. And it comes back at the end, so I appreciated that. Yeah, I liked it. What about you? How did you feel about that?
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. That and the, when it was happening, when they were kind of showing like the ridiculous face kind of smooshing and stuff, the effect, I was just like, oh, thank goodness they're doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
This, just like a virtue signal. Like I say this all the time. Okay, great. This is a movie that I can just sit back and enjoy. I don't need to think about it too much. I felt that way about when the monkeys kind of go after The Rock and start like humping his face.
Yeah. The monkey scene rode right up against the edge of my, where are they going with this?
Yeah. But it didn't go over the line, did it?
Yeah. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
It got it right to the very, very edge, but didn't cross it.
Totally.
It was like an Adam Sandler movie. We would have just like driven across the line.
Yeah. Grown Ups 3. That script has these monkey scenes. But you were mentioning Rosario Dawson when they kind of signaled this isn't going to be a romantic movie. And I feel like in the scenes when it's almost like The Rock or Sean William Scott are playing their side of that kind of scene, her character says, that is not what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she's hiking with The Rock and he says, you and I were kind of alike. you came from a tough time and I went through a tough time or whatever. And she's just like smirking at him. She's like, we are nothing alike.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about at all. I just love that she keeps throwing that stuff back in their face.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, I like you, Beck, but we're nothing alike or something like that.
Yeah. That was a good scene.
That was a good scene.
Well written. We got to know a little bit about his history. Not really. He's kind of vaguely alludes to it again, but yeah. But, I love a double cross. She steals the golden gato. And then one thing leads to another, and Declan shows up with some bagpipes and starts like quoting, I think, the Bible, and then just starts reciting a poem as a bunch of cows run into the town.
Yeah, that Declan scene is, I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. Because it doesn't make any sense.
He is clearly in a different movie. It's like, what? Yeah, it's a clear taking it too serious. Like it's like a voiceover as the last action scene is happening, and it's taking it really seriously. And quite frankly, I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, what they've told us about Christopher Walken and his henchmen is that they will just immediately shoot anyone who's annoying them at any moment. And so the fact that he was able to say all of those things and not just immediately get shot by them really surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it sets up the whole, like, the cows run through, and that's how they start the action sequence. Christopher Walken says, that's a lot of cows.
Yeah. He's got some great lines in that final scene.
Yep.
He's perfect. He is just every scene he's in. I wanted like 4 more scenes with him somehow.
Yeah.
I would have been so happy with that. But
yeah, I wonder why. I don't know. They could only afford him for so many days, maybe.
Yeah.
Great CGI close call of a flaming tire flying towards Sean William Scott in that scene.
Yeah.
Just needless CGI close call. Perfect for the aughts. You're not a real movie in the aughts until there are CGI close calls like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe, what do you think the tomato rating is on Rotten Tomatoes for this movie?
I gotta go with my gut. This is a perfect 70 for me.
It absolutely is. Right on the dot, 70%. Yeah.
Awesome. So our film.
And it feels like a 70, I'll be honest, as I watch it.
Yeah.
They've renamed the audience score, by the way. It's now the popcorn meter, taking the people out of it. I'm sure AI just creates this now.
Yeah.
What do you think the popcorn meter audience score is on this movie?
That's got to be higher. I mean, it should be 70, but it's probably like, I would give this like an 85, 86 in that range.
That's how I feel about this movie, but it's a 66. Yeah.
Right.
It feels, I don't know, 4 low.
Yeah.
To me.
4 low.
Yeah.
Should be 70.
Anyways, let me tell you what some of the critics said about this movie. Common Sense Media in 2010, so way after the fact, says mildly entertaining action movie with The Rock.
You weren't there in 2003 when it was.
I know. I wish I could write reviews. Like that's a job. You could just write that.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Seattle Times, our hometown, said, while you won't exactly walk out humming the plot, the rundown should go down quite decently with popcorn.
Yeah.
Perfect. San Francisco Chronicle, a witty, fast-paced action movie.
Yeah, seems fair.
Actually, they say action film, and it's not a film. It's a movie.
No.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Detroit News, a surefire audience pleaser that makes up for its dearth of ideas and originality with spunk, a self-effacing smirk, and gobs of humor.
Yeah, I'll take it. That's maybe a little generous, but
Detroit Free Press, the rundown understands how to take itself seriously and have fun, and gives respect to an audience that usually doesn't deserve any. Man, just guns a-blazing from the Detroit Free Press. Anyways, this movie was very well reviewed. It cost $85 million to make, so it needs to make double that to break even, and it grossed $80 million worldwide.
Really?
Yeah, so this movie did not do well. And his next movie, Walking Tall, which is a movie we'll definitely be getting to, kind of a similar scenario. They spent like 45 and it made like 35 or something like that. So this movie is remembered quite well, though. So
I bet it's made up for it over time with streaming and all of that. I feel like
yep.
If we will definitely get to Walking Tall, but I would watch this movie 100 times out of 100 if I had to choose it over Walking Tall.
Me too.
It's fine. It is what it is, but
absolutely. All right, Joe. Well, should we get to drinking games?
Let's do it. I have a bunch of drinking games, but let's go through our stock ones. And again, for anyone playing along at home, can be coffee, can be water, soda,
sure.
alcohol, whatever you want. I did this with my son, who's 14, and he was drinking water and really enjoyed the drinking games. And so I've amended the first one. So we have silent helicopter or low flying helicopter. And I gave this one low flying plane. No helicopter.
Oh, sure.
Low flying plane.
Yep.
So you can take a drink.
Yep.
I do not have a push in and enhance, although you maybe could make a case for one because they have lots of cameras, but there wasn't the classic kind of push in, enhance, clean it up.
But so it could be if you see someone kind of close up and pixelated on Christopher Walken's cameras.
Yeah.
It could be
You're
that.
Thirsty.
Sure.
Drink.
Yeah, totally.
I have, so when two people share a slow motion look in the middle of chaos, I gave this one because right before The Rock picks up a gun, they're like trapped by gunfire.
Yep.
Crescendo of the score coming. That's a classic to me. They weren't looking at each other, but they could have been, and it would have been perfect. So you can drink there.
Sure.
No explosion was silent suffering and ringing in the ears, unfortunately.
That's a bummer.
Opening credit scene where the title locks in with the sound. Yes, take a drink on this one.
Yep.
Yeah. No flashback to dialogue 2 minutes ago or further. CGI close calls. Oh, so many.
Absolutely.
So many in
the
movie.
shaft, the mine shaft where they're getting the Gato.
Yep.
In the firefight at the end.
Yep. So a lot of it. Great bad shots are everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Everywhere.
No inextricably wet streets or Give Us the Room or Interpol. So those are our stock drinking games.
Right. Yep.
But I will toss it to you, Greg Swinehart, to give us your first drinking game.
Anytime The Rock says, and this is the thing that happened throughout the movie where he gives option A and option B of how a situation can go down. Anytime he says option A.
Oh, option A. Oh, so you have just, all right.
Just option A.
I also had that one. So every time The Rock says option A or B in this movie.
Okay.
Yeah. What's another one you have?
Well, my next one was anytime he says option B.
Perfect. My first one is every time Rosario Dawson's accent slips a little bit.
She didn't need the accent, right?
No, she didn't need it.
No.
She totally could have been fine with it. So
anytime it's mentioned that The Rock doesn't like guns.
Yep. I have that one as well. I have every time you think Guy Ritchie is directing this movie, take a drink.
Amazing. I'm just going to add anytime you think Michael Bay is directing this movie.
Tony Scott, throw it in there.
Sure. Yeah.
This happens only once in the movie, so you just finish whatever drink you have.
Okay.
Every time Christopher Walken describes the Tooth Fairy, you take a drink.
There are two men in that jungle who are trying to steal from me. I feel like a little boy who's lost his first tooth, put it under his pillow, waiting for the Tooth Fairy to come. Only two evil burglars have crept in my window and snatched it before she could get here.
Okay. Affatto dos.
Wait a second. Do you understand the concept of the Tooth Fairy? Explain it to me.
Fala dos dentes, idiotas. Você perdeu dente? Ah? Põe debaixo. Almofada. Fado.
Wait, she takes the goddamn thing, gives you a quarter. They got my tooth. I want it back.
That scene is so excellent.
It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Anytime Sean William Scott reminds you of Harrison Ford with like a smirk or a mannerism, I promise you they're in there.
Awesome. That's so good. I have every time it looks like they stole second unit shots from Jurassic Park. Take a drink.
There was a story where Peter Berg and his location scout went to Brazil and they were robbed. And so they decided to shoot in Hawaii. And so that's why it looks like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
All right. Anytime The Rock's restaurant is mentioned.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have every time there's a whip, take a drink.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Henchman with a whip.
Yep.
Anytime thunder and lightning come up, which is like a Sean William Scott, like, yeah, that's the names for his fists.
Mm-hmm. Or feet, depending.
Or feet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Which apparently he made up. It was just like an inside joke, but it was so entertaining that they kept it in the film.
That's awesome. I have every time The Rock cocks a shotgun weirdly. Because like he does it under his arms. He does it on other people at different times.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
And yet totally makes the movie for me.
Yeah.
And they built to it. They don't start with that.
Nope. Yeah.
They didn't pull a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any more?
I have a few more.
Okay.
I have every time The Rock takes apart a gun, take a drink. Because he
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, takes it apart or unloads it or stuff like that.
Yep.
And then I have a couple from Milo, my son. Every time they say gato, take a drink.
Great.
And then every time they mention childhood myths like the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus, because there's multiple moments in there. So those are my son's addition to this.
Nice work, Milo. You're hired. That's amazing. That really rings like kind of leftover from the 90s as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was all that was left from the 90s, trying to milk those for everything they could.
I have a couple on our trope lightning round.
Yeah, let's do it. You might be watching a great bad movie if these tropes are in it.
Yeah, so we have color filters for third world countries. This one is dipped in sepia tones. You have odd couple or unlikely partnership.
Perfect.
One Last Job. You have a charismatic bad guy with Christopher Walken. You have an explosion on impact with a car crash. You have a conversation in the middle of chaos. A couple different times, or The Rock is walking the action through by, and then sort of, I think Rosario Dawson breaks the mold a little bit on this, but no women except for love interest or the mother. She's not really a love interest, and I feel like she's a better character, but those are my main ones. I don't think I had any other ones. Yeah, that was all of them.
All right, Joe, should we get to some important questions?
Let's do it. I'm dying. I have a couple. I'm really curious on what album this is for you. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Did this movie hold up then?
Yes, it held up then.
Does it hold up now?
By a thread.
Yeah. Do you think the clock is ticking on this one?
It might be.
How far are we away from the rundown not holding up anymore?
Or probably like 3 to 5 years.
You think so?
Guess. Yeah.
I was thinking 10.
All right. We'll see. We'll make a bet.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah.
In this world.
Yeah.
How hard do they sell the good guy in this movie?
Not too much. They kind of show it. They do a little bit more showing it than telling it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And how hard do they sell the bad guy?
Similarly, it's not, they don't do a lot of the, like the classic, like Christopher Walken's face on the screen with like the, this, only one man can cash these checks or whatever, or whatever what is from Cliffhanger, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, this is 10 years later. We're past that now.
Yeah.
All right. Why is there romance in this movie?
Oh, beautiful. There isn't romance. It's so
great.
good.
It's just perfect for you. Okay. Does this movie deserve a sequel?
I think it does. Like it's surprising that there hasn't been one for this movie. I could totally see the rundown 3, 4, 5 easy for this.
Absolutely. This is something that apparently The Rock and Peter Berg get asked all the time. I was watching an interview with Collider today that happened a couple years ago with Peter Berg, and it was the 5th time that this interviewer had talked about the rundown 2 with Peter Berg in an interview. Apparently, they got very close. A script was written, and it took place in Alaska with Jonah Hill and The Rock. The Rock had to go get Jonah Hill.
Interesting.
And they had a scene where, like, instead of a monkey attacking The Rock's face, it was a walrus. Up in Alaska. And it didn't get made because The Rock didn't want to go to Alaska for a couple months. And so they were trying to figure out what tropical place could he go to. So anyways, Peter Berg recently said he gives it a 50-50 chance it could happen. But we think it should have happened already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely should have happened already.
This does feel like the kind of movie that cannot get that lightning in a bottle twice, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The sequels are going to be terrible.
It's an Under Siege 2 scenario.
Yeah.
But, you know, free ideas for the rundown 2. Maybe they should go in dark territory.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Does this movie deserve a prequel?
No.
No?
No. I'm out. No prequels.
Okay. My only pushback is I believe there was a prequel to this movie called Young Rock already. And so I'm assuming that was the harsh past that The Rock is referring to when he talks about his dark days.
I'll allow it.
Okay. How can this movie be fixed? AKA, who should be in the remake?
All right. I have an answer, and I'm dying to hear your answer on this as well. But here is my idea.
Okay.
We put this in the Fast and Furious averse. And this is Los Bandoleros Part 2 for Fast 5.
Get out of here. This is the prequel going into Fast 5, you're saying?
They're in Brazil already.
Wow.
I mean, The Rock is in it. Oh, there's so much synergy here. This needs to happen. So
this, sets the scene. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean it has Jason Momoa in it?
We'd have to figure out how to get him in there.
They retconned him into that, right?
Yeah. Oh, we'll figure it out. We'll get him in there.
I mean, if it's got Momoa.
Mm-hmm.
Momoa and The Rock, has that happened yet?
It will in Fast 11.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, it totally will.
All right. How are you going to fix this movie?
When I finished watching this movie, I just decided there should not be a remake of this movie because it's just pure 2003 and we can't go back.
Yeah. All right.
So
fair.
Unless you want to make a rundown that's pure 2025 next year, that somehow just encapsulates what we don't even know that we'll love about it,
right.
About that year. So I copped out on that one. I don't think it should be remade. It's
right.
your prequel answer.
All right. Perfect.
All right, Joe, our favorite question. What album is this?
Okay. So I took it as what album catapulted somebody to fame kind of as a solo career?
Yeah.
Not that I'm equating The Rock and this person, but this is Beyonce, Dangerously in Love, her first solo album.
Wow.
After Destiny's Child, there was a little bit of conversation. Can she make it as a solo artist?
Right.
Yeah, and then she comes out and it's like, yes, she can. Same question for The Rock. Can he be a movie star? He's just a wrestler.
Right. Well known.
Yeah. That launched Beyonce into what she is today. This movie launched The Rock into what he is today. So that was my answer. What album is this for you?
Okay, so I was looking for an album by someone who is a known quantity, but this album launched them into a new thing. So the Beastie Boys had License to Ill, like the #1 album that year, was just a massive hit, but it was not a genuine album by them. They were joking around and making fun of people who were frat guys, but then they became the quintessential frat guys in real life on stage with like just getting entirely drunk and having big blown up things on their stage. So they decided to kind of regroup and make Paul's Boutique, which was still very much the Beastie Boys. Like it's definitely the same band, but it was like, we're going to try and learn our own instruments. We're going to work with a different producer. We're going to work with the Dust Brothers, and we're going to try and begin a new trajectory to our career. And Paul's Boutique is one of the greatest records in history. It didn't do very well though. It's liked much more in retrospect than it was at the time. But then they were able to go on and do Check Your Head and Ill Communication and Hello Nasty and the Five Boroughs. And so I think Paul's Boutique is the album that is the rundown of albums where they hit a stride and gave us an entirely new career for the Beastie Boys that we didn't know we wanted and they probably didn't know that they had. So Paul's Boutique. What song would you choose? It's got to be Crazy in Love.
It's Crazy in Love. That's still my favorite Beyonce song.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do Shake Your Rump.
Okay.
We do an album for every movie we review here, and you can go to Spotify, listen to Great Bad Movies music.
Like and subscribe. It helps our numbers.
Absolutely. On Spotify, Great Bad Movies music is a playlist. All right, Joe. At the end of the podcast, every episode, we rate the movie. Is it a great bad movie, a good bad movie, okay bad movie, bad movie, or worst case scenario, awful bad movie? How do you rate The Rundown?
I have been torn. I think I'm a little less all in on this movie. I felt like I was almost at an okay bad movie, but this is a good bad movie.
Oh, okay.
It's not, I can't put it up in the great, depending on my mood and I could probably get there, but this is a good bad movie. It's solid in what it does.
Yep.
But I feel like there are other movies we've done that I can't put it in that caliber movie, although it is, as you say, the perfect quintessential 2003 movie.
Yep.
For that reason, it's a good bad movie. What about you?
Okay.
How do you rate this?
Well, I think you and I are in exactly the same spot. I am right on the line between good bad movie and great bad movie. And since you went with good, bad movie, that means I need to go to the other side and go to great, bad movie just to counterbalance that. But I think it's the rapport that they have between them in their scenes. I think it's the way that they went the extra mile for 3 or 4 of the action sequences. The way it's definitely alluding to my favorite movies, and I don't mind that it's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like taking the best stuff from the past and bringing it into a new millennium, or I guess millennium. We're still in the millennium for Will Smith. Yeah. So I'm going to say great, bad movie. Not the best great, bad movie we've reviewed, but I'm going to say it's a great, bad movie.
All right. I'll allow it.
Okay. All right. Well, Joe, we made it.
Yeah, we did it. We had the conversation that needed to be had about the rundown. Quite frankly, I don't know why anyone would ever need to talk about this movie again.
No, it's the 21st anniversary of it. And we all know that's the last anniversary that you talk about movies.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're good. Oh, listen, this has been great, but I've got to go add some sports graphics to my life to make it more palatable on cable.
That makes total sense. I've got to go cock a shotgun in the most inefficient manner possible. So,
oh, okay. That totally works for me because I need to go to our local city hall and protest for stricter beanbag gun safety laws.
Probably wise. I'm going to go fall down a cliff for an exceptionally long time. It's okay, though. I'm going to land in water, so I'll be fine.
Well, listen, it's been great recording this episode with you, but I should have asked, was there an option B?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No one ever chooses that or shouldn't choose it. Anyway, I'm so confused right now about what the tooth fairy is. So Christopher Walken's coming over later to explain it to me.
Oh, okay. You know, that actually works for me because I need to go. I had some Conlobos before we started, and your face has been freaking me out this entire time.
It's fair. Anyway, I'm late. I've got to go play some bagpipes before a big shootout and make a very weird speech as if I'm William Wallace. So
yeah, only after you've spoken from the Bible for a little while, obviously.
Exactly.
Okay, well, you know, I don't think I'm going to stick around for that. And actually, that works for me because I need to go. There are some monkeys in the trees out next to my house, and I do not like the look in their eye.
I wouldn't either. Anyway, I'm off to find a precious artifact that is really important to an indigenous culture and put it in a museum. I really like the National Museum of England's model, so I'm going with that.
You know, I might go with, no, I shouldn't go. You know, kind of looking at it, thunder and lightning are not getting along, and I think it's time to put them down for a nap.
Probably. Anyway, I've got to go do some construction. I'm going to go take out some beams with my shoulder and then punch one out. So it's all good.
Does he jump across the street?
Jumps across the street.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great, but I'll see you soon.
See you soon.